Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to your AEW Wrestledream post-show. Starting off tonight, we got the pre-show tailgate match. This match actually went into the start of the actual pay-per-view. It was FTR versus Jet Speed. That was a decent match. Back-and-forth matchup between FTR and Jet Speed, with Jet Speed keeping the pace of the match. FTR hit a shatter machine on Kevin Knight in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Bayley then goes to the top rope, hits a shooting star press off the top rope. Dax and then Bayley both exchange in the middle of the ring, but Dax steals a pinfall with the help of Stokely Hathaway, who was ringside. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are FTR. Hats off to FTR for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into the official start of the night for the Wrestledream pay-per-view that was actually scheduled to start the show. It is Jamie Hayter taking on Tekla. This was pretty much a grudge match between both these individuals. The match itself was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Tekla and Hayter, with Tekla and Hayter both exchanging in the middle of the ring. Hayter then was trying to keep the pace of the match. Hayter hits an exploder suplex on Tekla into the corner. Tekla gets up, hits a spear on Hayter for a near fall, but Hayter ends up hitting a devastating lariat on Tekla, pins for the 3. And your winner of the match is Jamie Hayter. Hats off to Jamie Hayter for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a $500,000 tag team matchup. It is Jurassic Express taking on the Young Bucks. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Jurassic Express and the Young Bucks, with Jurassic Express keeping the pace of the match. Luchasaurus hits a moonsault to the outside, taking out the Young Bucks. Perry then hits a hurricanrana in the middle of the ring. Luchasaurus then hits a chokeslam on Nick Jackson. Nick Jackson then gets up, hits a Canadian Destroyer on Perry off the apron. Looked absolutely brutal. Nick Jackson then hits a devastating powerbomb on Perry off the apron. Young Bucks then hit a pile driver on Perry in the middle of the ring, followed by a BTE trigger on Perry for a near fall. Perry then somehow gets up, hits a hurricanrana into a German suplex on the Bucks. Jurassic Express then hit a Doomsday Device for a near fall. Jurassic Express then hits a Melter Driver for a near fall as well. Young Bucks then get up, hit a super kick into a BTE trigger for a near fall. Perry then hits a Poison Rana in the middle of the ring, and then Jurassic Express end up hitting the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match, and the winners of the $500,000, is Jurassic Express. After the match, the Don Callis family come out to the ring. They attack Jurassic Express. Young Bucks end up walking off, and then all of a sudden Kenny Omega's music hits. He comes down to the ring. He tries to talk to the Young Bucks, try to get them to go back to the ring to save Jurassic Express. That does not happen. Kenny Omega then rushes into the ring and saves Jurassic Express. Some interesting stuff there between the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a trios matchup for the number 1 contendership for the trios titles. It is the Demand versus the Hurt Syndicate. Before the match even gets started, the Demand attacked the Hurt Syndicate. The match itself was a decent match, back and forth matchup between the Demand and the Hurt Syndicate. Ricochet quickly hits a spirit gun on Lashley off the apron. The Demand were trying to keep the pace of the match, but Shelton applies an ankle lock on Bishop in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. GOA then sends Shelton through a table, landing on Lashley on the outside. Ricochet then hits a shooting star press on MVP for a near fall. Lashley then hits a Dominator on Ricochet in the middle of the ring for a near fall as well. Shelton and Bishop both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Shelton hitting a release German, sending Ricochet to the outside, taking everyone out on the outside. MVP then hits a ball-in on Ricochet in the middle of the ring, followed by Lashley hitting a spear and another spear on Bishop, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match and new number 1 contenders to the trios titles are the Hurt Syndicate. Hats off to the Hurt Syndicate for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we got a TNT title matchup. It is Kyle Fletcher defending the TNT title against Mark Briscoe. This match itself, I thought it was a decent match, man. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Fletcher and Briscoe, with Fletcher keeping the pace of the match. Fletcher and Briscoe both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Briscoe hitting a Fisherman Buster on Fletcher in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Fletcher then somehow gets up, hits a power bomb on Mark Briscoe for a near fall. Fletcher then hits a running kick into the corner on Briscoe, but Briscoe gets up, hits a J Driller off the apron on Kyle Fletcher. Fletcher then somehow gets up, hits another running kick into the corner on Briscoe, but Briscoe gets up, hits a froggy bow on Kyle Fletcher. Then he hits another froggy bow to the outside, taking out Kyle Fletcher. Briscoe then hits another froggy bow for a near fall, followed by a J Driller for a near fall. Fletcher then distracts the referee, hits a low blow on Briscoe, followed by a brainbuster on Briscoe for a near fall. And then Fletcher hits another signature brainbuster on Briscoe, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still TNT champion, is Kyle Fletcher. Hats off to Kyle Fletcher for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have an AEW's women's title match. It is Chris Statlander defending the AEW Women's Championship against Toni Storm. Now, I thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Storm and Statlander, with Statlander keeping the pace of the match. Statlander hits a moonsault off the apron, taking out Toni Storm. Storm gets up, hits a Tiger Driver in the middle of the ring on Statlander for a near fall. Toni then applies a chicken wing submission on Statlander, but the hold is quickly broken. After that, Toni and Chris both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Storm hitting a hip attack on Statlander into the corner. Statlander gets up, hits a 450 off the top rope on Stat for a near fall. Storm then gets up, hits a Storm Zero on Statlander for a near fall. Statlander then hits a Tombstone Pile Driver, followed by another Tombstone on Toni Storm, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still AEW Women's Champion, is Chris Statlander. After the match, Monet is here. Monet then congratulates Chris, but also tells Chris to leave the ring. Monet then says that she is the greatest champion of all time. And speaking of Monet, we have an open challenge. Monet issues an open challenge, title versus title, and the person that answers that open challenge is none other than Mina Shirakawa, the Women's Ring of Honor TV champion. The match itself, I thought was an okay match at best. Back and forth matchup between Monet and Shirakawa, with Shirakawa keeping the pace of the match. Shirakawa then applies a figure 4 leg lock on Monet, but the hold is broken in the middle of the ring. Monet then hits a backstabber on Mina, followed by a 3 Amigos paying homage to the late great Eddie Guerrero in the middle of the ring. Monet and Mina Shirakawa both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Mina hitting a glamorous driver on Monet for a near fall. Mina then applies another figure 4 leg lock on Monet, but the hold is quickly broken. Monet then hits a Meteora off the apron, landing on Shirakawa. Shirakawa gets up, hits a spinning back fist on Monet. Monet then applies a statement maker on Mina Shirakawa, but the hold is broken. Monet then hits a money maker for a near fall, followed by Monet hitting a roll up on Mina Shirakawa, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and new Ring of Honor Women's TV champion is Mercedes Moné. Yes, Monet adds another title to her title reigns, if you will. After that, Statlander comes out to the ring, and then Chris Statlander attacks Mercedes Moné, and then it was announced later on in the night that it will be, in fact, Chris Statlander defending the AEW Women's Championship against Mercedes Moné at Full Gear. Moving on from that, we have AEW Tag Team Championships on the line. We have Okada and Takeshita taking on Brody King and Bandito. I thought this was actually a decent match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Brody King and Bandito keeping the pace of the match. Brody King and Takeshita both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Bandito hitting a Poison Rana on Takeshita in the middle of the ring. Takeshita then somehow gets up, hits a Blue Thunder Bomb in the middle of the ring. Bandito hits a Shooting Star Press. Okada then goes for a Rainmaker, but missed and end up hitting Takeshita. Bandito capitalizes on this by hitting a 21 Plex on Okada, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match and still AEW Tag Team Champions are Brody King and Bandito. Hats off to Brody King and Bandito for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have the AEW World title on the line. It is Adam Page defending the AEW World title against Samoa Joe. I thought it was a decent match at best, man. Back and forth matchup between Page and Joe, with Joe keeping the pace of the match. Joe then hits a power slam for a near fall. Joe and Page then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Page hitting an enziguri on Samoa Joe. Joe then gets up, hits a powerbomb for a near fall on Page. Page then hits a powerbomb of his own on Joe for a near fall. Page then goes for a buckshot lariat, but Joe counters it into a coquina clutch. But the hold is quickly broken. Page then hits a deadeye on Samoa Joe in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Page then goes to the outside, hits 3 buckshot lariats on Samoa Joe, pins for the 3, And your winner of the match and still AEW World Champion is Adam Page. Hats off to Adam Page for getting the win in this matchup. But after the match, the Ops are here. Joe and Page then shake hands. Looks like Joe was pretty much congratulating Adam Page. But all of a sudden, Joe then attacks Adam Page as well as the Ops. Joe then hits Page with the title as well as a muscle buster on Adam Page. Looks like we have some unfinished business here between Samoa Joe and Adam Page. Moving on from that, we go into our main event of AEW's Wrestledream. It is an I Quit match. It is Jon Moxley taking on Darby Allin. I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Moxley and Allin, with Moxley keeping the pace of the match. Moxley then jams skewers into Darby Allin's nails. It looks like it was absolutely brutal. Moxley and Darby then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Darby choking Moxley with the AEW flag, the same flag that he climbed Mount Everest with. Darby then goes for a coffin drop, but Marina Shafir pulls Moxley out of the way, where Darby lands on the apron. Moxley then hits Darby with the belt, followed by a pile driver from Moxley onto Darby Allin. Darby then sprays lighter fluid on Jon Moxley. The Death Riders are here. Darby then sprays lighter fluid on the Death Riders. Marina then hits a low blow on Darby Allin. Moxley hits Darby with a stun gun in the middle of the ring. Moxley then applies a Bulldog choke, but the hold is broken. Claudio then sends Darby out of the ring onto the announce table. Moxley then hits Death Riders off the apron through a table. Moxley then is telling the ref Darby is out of his mind, begging Darby to stop the match. Death Riders then bring out an aquarium, fill it with water, then Moxley was pretty much trying to drown Darby Allin in the middle of the ring. After this, the lights go out, the lights come back on, and it's the return of Sting. Sting then attacks Moxley and the Death Riders. Sting then gives Darby the bat. Sting and Marina then are face-to-face on the outside. Darby then hits Moxley with the bat. Darby then hits a Scorpion Death Drop as well. Darby then hits a Coffin Drop, then applies a Scorpion Deathlock on Jon Moxley in the middle of the ring. Referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match and the winner of the I Quit match is Darby Allin. Hats off to Darby Allin for getting the win in this matchup. Couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to Wrestledream before I get the hell up out of here. And there's a lot to talk about, so, we're going to look into this entire show. I'm going to be honest, man. I have been one of those people that have been really critical on AEW's product, and to be honest with you, man, I think if anybody that watched Wrestledream would understand why. Wrestledream turned into a Wrestle Nightmare. This was something where AEW, is at a standstill, bro. The product is stale in AEW, 100%. Injuries right now are hindering this company. Now, I made this abundantly clear now for the past couple weeks. When you got Ospreay, Swerve, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson's no longer wrestling with the company, even from the women's side of things, there's a lot of injuries that are hindering this show immensely. Wardlow being out. I mean, there was even rumors and speculation that Wardlow was actually going to be the opponent against Adam Page and not Samoa Joe. But because Wardlow got injured somehow, they slotted Samoa Joe into this matchup against Adam Page, which they made this match between Joe and Page out of thin air. They're running out of options, man. That's just the problem that AEW is in right now. Wrestledream as a whole, I thought the card was a glorified Dynamite or Collision episode. To be honest, man, a lot of these matches that we've seen throughout the duration of Wrestledream, which, by the way, was immensely long. We're starting from 8 o'clock and not being done until almost 1 o'clock in the morning is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Even though we got, 9 matches? I mean, it was immensely long. I mean, some of these matches, I feel like, went 30 to 40 minutes almost, man. It was insane. That's what it felt like to me. I mean, we don't need 30, 40-minute matches, man. It's absolutely insane. And I made this abundantly clear about AEW a while back ago that Tony Khan has a firm belief that it's quantity over quality. I give a rat's ass about, I want quality matches, man. I give a shit less about quantity. I don't give a damn about that. We don't need 13 fucking matches to get us from 8 to 1 o'clock in the morning. It's absolutely insane, bro. And a lot of these matches meant jack shit, to be honest, and very, very predictable. Very predictable. And there's a lot of issues I had with this. I mean, if we're looking at the entire card, bro, I mean, it was just, man, like, for example, the main card comes on at 8. I tune in at 8, just like anybody else would. And then we're already in the middle of a goddamn match. And I'm like, where the hell did this match come from? And then come to find out, this was a match that was on the kickoff show that overlapped the start time of the 8 p.m. start time for the main card. And it overlapped. And meanwhile, this match is going on between FTR and Jet Speed. And you can literally see the opening pyro of the start of the show through the duration of this match, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And a match between FTR and Jet Speed that mean absolutely nothing. Nothing. So I thought that was a huge L on their behalf, that they couldn't finish the goddamn matchup between FTR and Jet Speed, a match that means absolutely nothing. And it has a run over until we get the start of the show, so that's red flag number 1 for me. And then, bro, throughout the duration of the night, I mean, it was progressively getting absolutely worse, man. Like, Wrestledream turned into a Wrestle Nightmare. Injuries are hindering this company right now. They have, I mean, I think Tony Khan and the powers that be in AEW threw this card together out of thin air. Very predictable. I mean, Tony Storm and Chris Statlander, bro, I mean, it was very predictable. And what does it do for Tony Storm? And that was the other problem that I was going to run into with this match, is that what does it really do for Chris, and what does it do for Tony Storm? Well, I can tell you exactly what it's going to do. It doesn't really affect Tony Storm that much, to be honest, because my thing is with Tony, and what happened at the end of the night, when Mina Shirakawa came up backstage and approached Tony Storm and said, well, they lost everything, but they still have each other. I'm going to tell you guys right now that there's a very good chance that we can see Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa teaming up to be a part of this AEW Tag Team Tournament, where we will once again see Tony Storm and Mina Shirakawa be AEW Women's Tag Team Champions for the first time ever. I can totally see that. For Statlander, we can already see what's going to happen with Stat. Her title reign's coming to an end. After Monet made that challenge to Stat for Full Gear, yeah, Stat's losing the title, bro. Monet, and the thing with Monet is in business with herself, bro. I made comments about Monet for a while now. I think what Monet has done as of late, especially with her AEW career, has been absolutely cringe. To be honest with you. I mean, she's winning these titles from companies and organizations that nobody even, A, gives a shit about, or B, nobody knows. And I think recently she just won her 12th title this past weekend in a company that no one really gives a shit about, nor nobody really knows. Hence the reason why she's calling herself Ultimo Monet, which is a knockoff to the Ultimo Dragon, when he had so many titles back in the day when he was winning the J Cup and everything else like that. With all due respect to Miss Mercedes Monet, she's no Ultimo Dragon. I'm going to let y'all know that now. I think what she's doing right now is cringe. I think she's completely squashing the AEW women's locker room in AEW. She's not putting anybody over. And you can say, oh, well, she put Tony Storm over. Bro, Tony Storm was already over, well over, than Mercedes Moné. To be honest with you, I think Tony Storm has probably been the best thing that's come out of AEW. With the timeless Tony Storm character. It's probably the best thing on paper right now for AEW. And if it's not for nothing, I think Tony Storm saved that women's locker room with the matches that she had with Mariah May and what the other matches she's had with the superstars in the back. Absolutely. The vignettes, the promos. Tony Storm has carried that women's locker room on her back and has done a fantastic job. Why Mercedes comes in and is literally killing AEW's women's locker room. She don't give a shit about nobody in that locker room except for Mercedes. And I'm telling you right now, the reason why she's doing it is because Monet is now lifer for AEW. She's looking at the time when her contract comes up with AEW. She's trying to do whatever she can to raise her stock to go back to WWE. In her own mind, in her own way. Absolutely. Absolutely. What she's doing right now is absolutely cringe. So when this match takes place at Full Gear, would I be shocked if Statlander loses the TBS women's or the AEW women's title? Absolutely not. No. Because Tony Khan and AEW are pushing Mercedes Moné to the fucking moon, and it's ultimately hurting this company. And to be honest with you, I think it's ultimately tarnishing her career. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be on that hill by myself, and that's fine. But I think what Monet has been doing as of late is tarnishing her career. To be honest with you, and it's an absolute shame because what Sasha Banks did in WWE, specifically NXT, in the match that she had with Bayley, I mean, you want to talk about a moment, bro. Her career in AEW has tarnished her career. Absolutely. People are tired of seeing Monet. They're tired of seeing this championship win after championship win against people that nobody knows about. And she's winning these titles against with companies that no one even knows or gives a shit about. You know what I mean? And that's just being real. The open challenge shit was cringy as hell. Monet, I mean, honestly, bro, if she left AEW, I would not be mad at all. I'm going to be honest. And I might be on the hill all by myself on that, but I would not be mad if she left. Because she's crippling the women's division in AEW. Absolutely. And you can say, oh, well, Toni Storm's doing it. Well, how can you say that when Stat just beat Toni? Number one. Number two, when she had those matches with Mariah May, she put Mariah May immensely over to a point where Mariah May was done with the company and now is over in NXT. Toni Storm helped Mariah May and put Mariah May immensely over in AEW. Absolutely. Monet's put nobody over, bro. Nobody. That woman is in business for herself, and she knows what the hell she's doing. And it's ultimately tarnishing her career. So that's a whole different thing. But my whole standpoint on Monet is she's looking to raise her stock to get the hell out of AEW. And she don't give a shit who she squashes on the way up. She just does not care. And she's not putting nobody over, bro. So when that match was announced between Statlander and Monet for Full Gear, I would not be surprised if Stat drops that title to Monet. Not shocked at all. Considering the run that Monet has been on as of late, specifically with these title reigns that she currently has at the moment. So I would not be shocked if Statlander drops the belt to Monet at this year's Full Gear. Would not be shocked at all. So there was that issue as well, also with the opening of Wrestledream. And then we get Kyle Fletcher, Mark Briscoe. I'm going to be honest, man. Look, they were going to box themselves in the corner regardless of this matchup in two different ways. If Briscoe would have came in and beat Fletcher, it would have been a problem. And the reason why I think it's a problem is because you have a guy like Kyle Fletcher who could be the future of this company for the next 10, 15 years, and he drops the belt and he loses. He loses to Mark Briscoe. That's a problem. But on the other side of the coin, Briscoe also losing to Kyle Fletcher also shows you the mindset and standpoint that Tony Khan and AEW have with Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe, in my honest opinion, and I respect the hell out of Mark Briscoe, and I think the Briscoes tag team as a whole, Mark and Jay, were severely underrated. One of the best tag teams of all time. But do I think they're going to put the AEW World title on Mark Briscoe? No, I do not. I don't think they have a whole lot of faith in Mark Briscoe, bro. If you look at his tenure so far in AEW, it hasn't been the greatest, man. You look at how many times that guy's been in the Continental Classic tournament and he's come up as a loser and a failure. They won't give this guy a significant win that actually means something. I mean, honestly, on paper, the only win that I can think that will really be significant for Mark Briscoe throughout his entire AEW career so far, in my opinion, would be the match that he just had with MJF in the Tables and Tax match. To be honest. Because MJF technically is the number one contender for Adam Page's World Heavyweight title. And they put Briscoe over in that match, which, ironically, you would think because Briscoe beat MJF in that match, that Briscoe would be the next guy in line for Adam Page's World Heavyweight title. That did not happen. They said, the hell with Mark Briscoe. We're going to give you a consolation prize with a TNT title, and we're going to give the AEW World title match opportunity to Samoa Joe for no apparent reason why. It's not like Samoa Joe has done anything to earn it. You know what I'm saying? Like, the logic gaps in this company, the direction of this company, nobody fucking knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's going on, man. Seriously. And it's crazy. It honestly is crazy, man. This Wrestledream card sucked. I'm gonna let y'all. I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all, man. This card sucked. Even the $40 I spent on this goddamn pay-per-view, I don't even think it was fucking worth it. To be honest. This was one of the worst AEW pay-per-views of all time. One of them. Which is crazy because, you know, if you look at the narrative for AEW and Tony Khan, for the longest time, Tony Khan has been Mr. Pay-Per-View. That the AEW pay-per-views have, you know, slapped, if you will, for AEW. It's one of the main things that keeps this company afloat and at bay as of late is their pay-per-views. I can't put Wrestledream in that category as far as being one of the best pay-per-views in AEW's history. I can't. The card sucked, man. They threw this card together out of thin air. Statlander and Tony, very predictable. Very predictable. They also, like I said, are making an announcement for the Women's Tag Team Tournament Bracket. That announcement is taking place this week on Dynamite. You don't think Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm ain't teaming up to go after those Women's Tag Team titles? Oh, you better believe it. And they should. Especially after the segment that happened backstage at Wrestledream between Mina and Toni Storm. Saying they don't have anything but each other. You don't think they're not going to go after the women's tag team titles? Oh, you better believe it. You know, they brought in Lacey Lane. I would also bring in Katana Chance as well. Reform that tag team and have them go after the women's tag team titles as well. Why not? They were both free agents. Bring them in. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying, bro. This company, its logic gaps out the wazoo. Absolutely. I want to talk about Samoa Joe and Adam Page and what happened at the end of that match and the match itself. To me, this match between Joe and Page was made out of thin air. They had nobody else, man. Nobody else. There was no other suitable challengers right now for Adam Page. For me, besides Mark Briscoe, there's nobody else. MJF is off filming a movie or enjoying his honeymoon, whatever have you. Wardlow's out. Swerve's out. Ospreay's out. There's no suitable contenders right now or decent number one contenders to go up against Adam Page. They made this match out of thin air between Samoa Joe and Adam Page. Was it an okay match? Yeah, it was an okay match. I was happy with the outcome of the match as far as Adam Page retaining the AEW World title. Yeah. But I think the biggest story coming out of that match is what happened at the end. We see the Ops come out and help Samoa Joe up. They looked like Joe was going to celebrate with Adam Page. They shook hands and everything else. And then out of nowhere, the Ops and Samoa Joe attack Adam Page. I'm just going to be a conspiracy theorist here for 1 second. We know that AEW has Blood and Guts coming up next month, where there's already been rumor and speculation that there's going to be a women's match, and there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about a men's Blood and Guts match as well. But if I had to be a conspiracy theorist here, the way things are starting to slowly shape up, bro, is we can possibly see a women's Blood and Guts match as well as a men's Blood and Guts matchup as well. And what I mean by that is after seeing Adam Page being attacked by the Ops and Samoa Joe, we also saw the Don Callis family attack Jurassic Express, and Kenny Omega coming out to save Jurassic Express from the ass kicking they were getting from the Don Callis family. What if we get something at this year's Blood and Guts where we have the women's Blood and Guts match, but then on the men's side, what if we have a reunion here between Page, Omega, the Young Bucks, and Jurassic Express, which I believe is 5 right there, versus the Ops and maybe 2 members from the Don Callis family going up head-to-head in a Blood and Guts matchup. Who knows, bro? We might get a reunion here of the original Elite. Now, to me, honestly, I know some people are like, oh, man, that's cringy. We don't need that. Bro, to be honest with you, I think we do. This is something where AEW, and I preach this shit, bro, since the past couple years now. They need to go back a little bit to what brought them to the dance. The Elite need to come back. The Young Bucks need to come back with the Super Kick Party theme. Coming back as baby faces. Why not, bro? Because right now, nothing else is panning out for the Bucks. Kenny Omega's really not doing shit. Adam Page right now is kind of at like a standstill right now, depending on who's going to come back from injury to challenge him for the AEW World title. Why not? The Young Bucks need it. Kenny Omega needs it, man. Kenny Omega's not doing shit right now. Yeah, he teamed up with Jack Perry and Luchasaurus. I get that. But what is Kenny Omega doing right now in a singles run? Nothing. They weren't running it back with him and Kyle Fletcher. There's nothing with Andrade, which I will be putting a video about that this week as far as what I know with what happened to Andrade, which I think is absolutely fucking ridiculous. And the reason why we haven't seen Andrade. So they didn't run it back with Andrade and Omega, and they didn't run it back with Kyle Fletcher and Kenny Omega at this year's Wrestledream. Instead, we got Briscoe versus Fletcher for the TNT title, which, like I said, was pretty much giving Briscoe a consolation prize to get him in a pay-per-view match against Kyle Fletcher for a TNT title opportunity. Did he win the match? No, he came up short. Because AEW doesn't have a whole lot of faith in Mark Briscoe. That's a fact. That's a fact. So, we could see maybe a small reunion here between the original Elite taking on Don Callis' family and maybe Samoa Joe and the Ops. Possibly. Am I against it? No, I'm not. I'm not against it at all. And then we get to the main event. Darby Allin and Jon Moxley. The one match that I was actually legitimately excited for leading into this year's Wrestledream. Did it live up to the hype as far as me being super excited? No, it did not. No, it did not. Which is, man, it's unfortunate, bro, because I told you guys, the segment that Jon Moxley and Darby Allin had when they were sitting in that prison, if you will, and they were talking to each other through that plane glass window. And then you see Pac beat the shit out of Darby Allin. But just the banter back and forth between Moxley and Darby before Darby got his ass kicked from Pac. It was great. It made the match important. It gave it some kind of significance. leading us up into WrestleDream. And it got me excited. It got me definitely excited for the matchup because I'm like, all right, there's a little bit of story here. We can get invested. You know what I mean? We're going to see what Darby Allin can do because we know that Darby's not going to quit. You know, that you're going to have to literally make sure that guy can't even walk out of that ring before he even quits that match. So I was excited for the story leading us up into this match. And then we get this match, bro, and it literally was a dumpster fire. This match was all over the goddamn place, man. I mean, you know, the thing with me is, bro, and look, I'm not sitting here saying I wasn't a fan of ECW and stuff like that, bro, but when they do these I Quit matches at times, it's absolutely cringy. You know, Marina bringing out the skewers and Moxley, you know, hammering the skewers underneath Darby Allin's nail. It's like, come on, man, you're doing that to get a cheap pop, number one. Two, one of the most cringiest things I saw was when they brought out this Home Depot fish tank that they bought, maybe, or at Walmart. Brought out this fish tank to the middle of the ring. You can see Claudio and Powers that Be fill up this damn fish tank with water. And Moxie's pretty much trying to do whatever he can to drown Darby Allin in this $50 fish tank, if you will, is to make sure that Darby Allin can say, I quit in this match when he's trying to drown the damn guy in the middle of the ring in this damn fish tank. And then all of a sudden the lights go out and then we see none other than Sting. Sting appears and he helps out Darby Allin against the Death Riders and Jon Moxley, which ultimately helps secure Darby Allin to get a win in this matchup against Moxley in this I Quit match. Now, was it great to see Sting? Yeah, absolutely. I have been saying for many, many months that it would have been great after Sting's retirement match that maybe Sting would have maybe stuck around and maybe been a mentor to Darby and been a manager to Darby Allin. Why not? He doesn't have to be on TV every single day. You can still have good video packages and vignettes that Sting can do. I mean, hell, they were doing all those vignettes and video packages for Sting and Darby Allin leading up to Sting's retirement match. So Sting could still be an on-air figure for AEW. Doesn't mean he has to wrestle at all. So it was great to see Sting. Sting looks great. Absolutely great. Phenomenal. But Sting was the main vocal point in this entire match, to be honest. I mean, Sting really saved Darby's ass in this match, to be honest with you. Because Jon Moxley and the Death Riders were beating the shit out of Darby Allin throughout this match. I mean, the deck was stacked. You know, it was stacked up against Darby Allin. You know what I mean? He had to not only go up against Jon Moxley, but he had to deal with Wheeler Yuta, Claudio, Pac, Marina Shafir. Darby was on an island all by himself until Sting came out and pretty much saved Darby from getting his ass kicked. Now, do I think we're going to see Sting again? I don't know. To me, if I had to predict, it was a one-off for Sting. I don't see Sting making an appearance at AEW's Dynamite this week. I'd be shocked if he does. I think it was a one-off for Sting to help out Darby Allin. You know, I think the biggest thing from WrestleDream coming out of the show was where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? We know Full Gear is right around the corner. Do I think we'll see a Will Ospreay? No. Swerve? I don't think so. So my thing is what are we going to do now leading us into Full Gear? Who's going to challenge Adam Page for the World Heavyweight title? Who's going to challenge Fletcher for the TNT title? What's Omega going to do next? What's next for the Bucks? You know what I mean? What's next for the AEW Tag Team Championships? What's next? Are we going to see a falling out here between Takeshita and Okada? Is Okada and Takeshita going to have a match? You know, you can do a title versus title because if I'm not mistaken, Takeshita is now currently the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Okada is the Unified Championship, but title versus title. Why not? Why not? Again, Takeshita could be one of those guys that can carry this company for the next 10, 15 years. If they actually put storyline behind him and actually push him to the moon. Just like a Kyle Fletcher. Just like an MJF. Are we going to see MJF come back? Is MJF going to sign the contract giving Adam Page and Tony Khan a week's notice leading us into Full Gear this year? Is that going to be another option? We need something, man. MJF needs to come back. We need something. We need MJF versus Page. We need it. For those people that hate MJF, look, bro, at the end of the day, who is left for Adam Page right now? We need MJF. Unfortunately, with this company, we kind of need all hands on deck right now because they don't know how to build future stars for this company. What's going to be next for Fletcher? Or Adam Page? Or the AEW Tag? What's going to be next for Brody King and Bandito? We know what's next for the Ops. It's going to be the Hurt Syndicate. MVP and Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, which, by the way, which I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet because I think he's currently a free agent. This would be the time to bring in someone like Cedric Alexander. I respect the hell out of MVP and what he's done. MVP in that matchup against the Gates of Agony, or the trio that is Ricochet and, you know, Bishop and all those guys, I would entertain the idea for MVP to kind of step back and bring in someone like Cedric Alexander. I think he's a free agent. I think his contract was up with TNA. I would entertain the idea of bringing in Cedric Alexander and reuniting the Hurt Business, if you will, but now it's the Hurt Syndicate, and realigning Lashley, Alexander, and Shelton Benjamin as the Hurt Syndicate. I know that, you know, the Hurt Syndicate are looking for new members to fill the void in the Hurt Syndicate. Why not bring in Cedric Alexander? It gives MVP a break. He can be the person of reasoning, if you will, or the mouthpiece for the Hurt Syndicate. Wow, I really couldn't get that out. The mouthpiece for the Hurt Syndicate, and actually give them the matches and be the spokesperson for them. Kind of like a Paul Heyman for the Vision, to be honest. I'm not sitting here saying that MVP is a Paul Heyman. I'm not saying that. So before people are like, oh, yo, he ain't nowhere near Paul Heyman. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he can be Paul Heyman-ish with being the mouthpiece for the Hurt Syndicate, and you bring in someone like Cedric Alexander to reunite Alexander, Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin. Because to me, it would have been the perfect time to bring in Alexander if he still was a free agent at Wrestledream, number one. Number two, I would have Shelton and Cedric as a tag team and have Bobby Lashley push him to the main event scene, where we can entertain the idea of seeing Lashley in an AEW World Championship match or a TNT title match, and start entertaining that. Because Lashley, I mean, for one, he's immensely over. And Lashley should be in the main event scene. Absolutely. I've already pitched a match for MJF. If MJF beats Adam Page for the world title, at World's End, we get MJF versus Bobby Lashley for the AEW World Championship at this year's World's End. Why not? There's some unfinished business there between MJF and Bob, if you will. Why not? Let's run it back. Story writes itself, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's going to be the most interesting thing leading us into Full Gear this year after what we saw at WrestleDream, is how are the pieces going to align for us to have a somewhat decent pay-per-view at this year's Full Gear, knowing that we still have significant injuries even now and still leading us into Full Gear. What stories are going to start to unravel and unfold leading us into Full Gear, because that's what we need. The shit that we saw in the segment between Jon Moxley and Darby Allin leading us into this match at WrestleDream and this I Quit match is exactly what we need to see, or something like it, every single week on Dynamite, or if not on Collision. Getting us excited and invested in these matches, leading us into the next pay-per-view. That's going to be that's the biggest takeaway that I took out of WrestleDream after the show went off the air. Is how is AEW going to bounce back and produce storylines and give us pay-per-view matches for us leading us into this year's Full Gear. We already know one, which is going to be Monet versus Stat for the AEW Women's Championship. That's one match out of, 13? Or 10? So we're going to need more matches for us leading into Full Gear. On top of that, we know that October is damn near almost over in the next 2 weeks, leading us into November. So we don't know when. I don't even know when Full Gear is going to be yet. It might be early to mid-November. We need to start having build leading us into Full Gear, and that's the biggest takeaway I took away from WrestleDream. They need names to return, bro. I don't know what Christian Cage is doing, but he needs to come back. Copeland, I don't know what's going on with Copeland. He needs to come back. They need those names, bro, because unfortunately with the injuries, it's hindering this company. It really is. They can't make good matches without these people, it's a shame, because these men and women should be able to take some time off, or if they have to deal with an injury, they can, and it's not going to hinder AEW's show. But because, like I said for the millionth time, because they don't know how to build younger stars, it hinders the show. Can't just rely on Kyle Fletcher, bro, and Adam Page. You just can't. It needs to be top to bottom throughout the entire card. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I know they're going to announce these women's tag team tournament. I mean, hell, for all intents and purposes, the finals of that tag team tournament could happen at Full Gear. And we can start seeing tournament matches play out for the next couple of weeks leading us into Full Gear. Which, am I against it? No. Tournament-wise, AEW does a great job, or seemingly tries to do a good job with tournaments. most notably Continental Classic, the one we got the last time. And I would have to say the Owen. I thought the Owen was great. I thought the Owen was actually put together very well. And the Owens are usually pretty well. So we need something like that where it's going to, get us invested in these matches. And, get us excited. And that's what we need. We need something that's going to get us invested and excited in these matches. And right now, we're just not getting that. We need something that's going to get us excited, have story wrapped around it that can actually get us invested in these matches. And if we don't have that, then clearly we're not going to be invested in the storylines and the matches. And that's just the way it is. I think Wrestledream is, it's funny because you see WWE and ESPN, now that they're working together, they give out these grades for these pay-per-views like they did for WrestlePalooza, where they gave it a C, and then they gave, I think it was a B or B plus for Crown Jewel. I would love to see someone grade WrestlePalooza like they would grade a WWE pay-per-view. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I think WrestlePalooza was probably like a D or a D minus. I thought the card sucked, man. It was a glorified Dynamite and Collision for Wrestledream that you're paying $40 for, if not more. The shows need to get better. Storylines need to be getting better or built to get the fans invested in the product so we can get excited for these next pay-per-views. Am I excited for the Women's Tag Team Tournament announcement? Yeah, I am. If they do it correctly, it can be really presented very well and come off very well. So I'm excited to see the names that are going to be a part of this tournament. I can already predict that we're going to see maybe, Mina Shirakawa and Toni Storm. Most likely Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford as well. Storm and Shirakawa, Ford and Bayne. I would say return, Lacey Lane and reunite her with Katana Chance. Sure. Absolutely. I don't know who else they would put as a tag team because at the end of the day, they don't really have women's tag teams. I can definitely see maybe Julia Hart and Sky Blue also being a part of that. At some kind of capacity, I would say Harley Cameron would be in it. I don't know who she would be teaming up with. Maybe Anna Jay. We might get Anna Jay and Ty Mello as well as a tag team in this women's tag team tournament. So we're going to see how it's going to play out, man. I mean, I think right now they're going to make the announcement. Maybe we'll see some matches in this tournament leading us into the finals, maybe taking place at Full Gear, maybe. But we need to start getting storylines, bro. And that's, like I said, that's my biggest takeaway coming out of Wrestledream is what is AEW going to do next? Because Wrestledream wasn't it. And now with them still sustaining injuries with top talent in the company, what are you going to do next? Or what are you going to do now to actually want to get me invested into wanting to watch or purchase Full Gear next month? And that's the biggest takeaway that I have coming out of Wrestledream. Because we need storylines and we need something to get invested in for us to actually be fixated and focused on this year's Full Gear. But I think Wrestledream as a whole, bro, it was definitely a letdown and definitely just a disappointment and a nightmare for AEW. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Wrestledream. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful.